That is Rasmus Dahlin with a bomb from the point. Jacob Bernard-Docker, first 2 assists on the night. Good morning. It's Jeremy and Joe. And Nate's in for Jeremy this week. The Sabres win yesterday in Winnipeg, a game that they got kind of dominated in, but found a way to win anyway, which found a way to win is just James Reimer. Was unbelievable. Some of the numbers from that game yesterday. Here's how badly, if you missed it, it's all Sabres won. They did, and all of their goals, I would say, were great individual plays. Like they didn't score by goals going in off of knees, but they didn't do much other than what they did on the goals. And the Jets goalie, by the way, was Eric Comrie on the night, so you might expect to score in every opportunity that you had. Shot attempts in the game, 71-32 in favor of Winnipeg. Scoring chances, 32-9 in favor of Winnipeg. Shots were 36-17.
They got Reimered, bro. They got Reimered.
High danger chances, 13-2.
Nice.
Favor of Winnipeg. Expected goals, 3.99 to 1.68. Yeah, Reimer.
They got Reimered.
Reimer.
Haven't we all in our life been Reimered one time?
McLeod, too, by the way.
Yes.
4 points for him. And his
stock is rising.
Yeah, he's got a contract up at the end of the year. RFA.
He kind of feels like the best move this team has made in a trade acquisition.
Yeah, in a while. They haven't really lost a trade, one of these hockey trades yet. I know the Cousins trade is 5 games in, and Cousins looks good, and Norris
just ask
is
Senators
hurt already.
Fans, though. Senators fans will tell you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Fleece.
Senators fans on social media are obsessed with telling Sabre fans how good Cousins is, and I'm like, guys, the whole time, like, shouldn't you guys be worried about like what you've been down with us too long, right? If you're in a spot and you're still worried about the team that's in last place, also, the fan base that's in the last place.
You don't have to tell Sabres fans about Dylan Cousins. We've watched him for 5 years.
Yeah.
I think Sabres fans know everything there needs to know about Dylan Cousins.
Yeah, well, he's back this week, by the way. Sabres and Senators is, I believe, tomorrow at 7. Yes, tomorrow at 7.
Perfect. So let's get that Dylan Cousins first time and anytime goal scorer. I mean, separate bets. We talked.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah, and tribute video, I would expect, tomorrow as well.
Would you expect a tribute video?
Sure.
What are you tributing?
They'll put a few highlights up, and they'll put the Heritage Classic where we thought he was sick and he
overtime
killed
goal
Austin Matthews
Miller,
over the middle.
The overtime goal on the Miller night.
Yep, that was a good one. Dahlin throws a Hail Mary pass. Yeah, they'll put up 30 seconds of highlights. Olofsson got a video, didn't he? When he came back?
Yeah, if Olofsson gets a
video.
Last
week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, then I would say Cousins gets a video.
Here's we'll get to the draft. I want to get some calls in on that coming up, and we'll spend a lot of today on it. Quickly, though, on the Sabres. Terry Pegula
twice
goes to Utah, goes to Minnesota on the road trip with the Sabres.
Yeah, bad games. Bad games.
Meaningful at all, though, because that's pretty rare.
Feels like it.
I can't remember, and I might just, again, not be ready to remember this right off the top of my head. I don't remember the last time he was seen on a road trip like that. It was a story early in the year when he went to Montreal to talk with the team, and they got boat raced the next night.
We believe in you. No changes are coming.
But it was a story that he was there, and he gets seen here in these 2 games. A pretty, screenshot that you could read more into than you probably should. But the thing about figuring out if Adams is going to get fired is I've been making this point for a couple weeks. You don't really ever know what it looks like because you don't hear from the owner. Nope. Most teams don't, but this one we haven't heard from him on the Sabres in like 5 years. So we don't hear him do interviews throughout the season the way we hear the GM and the coach do. So there's really no tea leaves to pick up on and to read into and try to figure it out. There's nothing to really try and figure out, right? It's just wondering if he'll get fired or not. What were the signs when Jason Botterill got fired? What were the signs when Tim Murray got fired or Darcy? They just kind of happened. Not quite out of left field, but there wasn't like a warning sign coming for any of those, I don't think. And here, is it just funny Is it just a bad timing, or is it meaningful that we saw a screen grab of Adams and Pegula in an empty box and they were sitting on opposite corners?
Somebody
what does that qualify as? Is it worth reading into? Is it just funny? Is it coincidental?
Somebody posted a side-by-side of that image of those guys like literally sitting at opposite corners, and then him and Brandon Beane slapping hands when I don't know what it was from. Maybe it's from a game. Oh, sure. It was from the Dallas Thanksgiving game when Josh Allen got that first down. Yeah. Like, and they're like very different vibes. I'm gonna go ahead. You guys, this is your gig. This is your normal gig, right? You guys, this is what you do full time. It's what you do full time. I'm in sales. Okay, so let me bring something in to help other people that are also in sales that are listening to this that probably aren't awake right now because most people in sales jobs aren't going to work at 6:30. But in case you're listening back, right? So in sales, there are a couple of things that happen when you are struggling in sales, right? There's remediation. You're going to start having more one-on-ones with your direct manager. I'm going to tell you what the last thing that happens before you get fired is. Mm-hmm. Your boss starts to do ride-alongs with you. He wants to know, it's literally Office Space. What would you say that you do here? Like these start to become the questions that get asked. Like, what do you do on a day-to-day? Okay, you're struggling in sales. What they start to look through and start to parse through is, are you making enough phone calls? Are you prospecting? Are you spending enough time building your pipeline? Because if your pipeline's good, then you should be selling. Yeah. If your pipeline's not good, you aren't doing the right things to get. So these are all things that start to happen when you're in a real job and you're in sales and you're struggling. The last thing that happens before you get fired is your boss is like, I'm going to go ahead and watch exactly what you do for the next week. We're going to do ride-alongs. Mm-hmm. And then when you're the sales guy and you realize, oh crap, now the guy's looking over my shoulder. Now I got to make the extra phone calls. So now you're trying to do the things. You're trying to put a front on. You're trying to pretend. And I think we're at the point where Terry's doing ride-alongs. I don't know what the day-to-day is for Kevyn Adams. I'm sure he's not being scrutinized because he's not putting in the hours day-to-day.
Post-deadline, I don't know what there is to do for him other than call guys up and send guys down. And I'm not sure.
I have thought since the move that allowing Kevyn Adams to make a trade like the Dylan Cousins trade, to me, signaled he would be back. That you wouldn't if you really thought that Kevyn Adams wasn't going to be here in 3 months time, I don't think you let him make a core change to your team. Because I think you would want whoever comes in to have a fresh slate with all of these players to decide if he wants Dylan Cousins or doesn't want Dylan Cousins, whether he wants Alex Tuck or doesn't want Alex Tuck, or whomever, right? Whether he wants Henry Jokiharju or he doesn't, probably wouldn't. But I guess where I'm thinking is that trade, it's not a franchise-defining trade. Dylan Cousins is a core piece and a former first-round pick. But I wouldn't view him as like an Eichel or even a Reinhardt, or I don't view him on those levels, and I don't believe he's bound for those levels after leaving the Sabres. But it does say something to me that the core that he is not fully responsible, but largely responsible for putting together is now they've begun the process of allowing this general manager to break it down and rebuild it again. And I just don't think you let him do 20% of the job. I think that they get to this offseason short of Lindy retiring?
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah, I would think it's in the ball's in his court. I would assume, if he wasn't the coach next year, I would expect it's more because he walks away.
He walks away. And by the way, I don't know that I don't necessarily want to just say that that's ruled, because even if you bring in a new GM, if you bring a new GM, is that the other scenario where he's just like, I'm going to go with somebody else?
I don't know if the new GM though is going to be how dramatically different their job is with Josh Norris in the building instead of Dylan Cousins.
Totally right.
Because it was a hockey trade.
Totally right.
The other thing is you might be right that the intent at the time. I wonder how that works. If the guy just has you're the GM, you have reign to do whatever you want until I decide you're not the GM anymore. Versus Terry being in the room or whoever being in the room on trade deadline day and telling Adams you're not allowed to make that trade. In the moment,
Yeah.
like that might be tough too. I don't know. It also could be that he had no thought of moving on from the GM when the trade was made. Like, this is your next move. And then, I don't know, could an owner feel more embarrassed than he already is that Dylan Cousins is a point a game player now in Ottawa through 6 games, and this guy who we knew the risk was he couldn't stay healthy immediately gets hurt.
Yeah.
Could that, like, the trade's already not going well. I really feel, personally, I don't feel like it really matters. It's only 6 games in.
I also think long term it'll probably be a pretty even trade. When you look back, I think it's so easy now in the present when your team is not winning and you're watching the team you just traded that guy to in a position where Dylan Cousins is probably going to be playing playoff hockey. And I think that there's probably, I would say, I have a little anxiety about the imagery of that. How it'll feel. I might feel nothing, and there's a good chance I'll feel nothing, but there's a chance I feel something. And I guess I want to feel like I get to a point where the thing where I'm talking about maybe feeling something for this team isn't that it's a player on another team that used to be on your team. Like, I would just like to start it. It's incredible how they've gotten here, and it's borderline impossible what the Sabres have been able to do.
It's historic. It is one of the most incredible things
I'm not sure
that has ever happened. I feel like sports-wise in this city, it's one of the most incredible things that's ever happened because maybe being topped by only, like, most unlikely things that have ever happened in Buffalo sports. Number one is probably going to 4 straight Super Bowls.
Yes.
That is bonkers
remarkable
that a team could do
that.
Number 2 is a hockey team in this league going 14 years without even getting lucky once and getting to the postseason. They have the record by 4 years. It's definitely more incredible. And I don't know what is really different, though, from an ownership to GM standpoint is being embarrassed again something that matters to them and moving on from the GM? Like, if Cousins goes off and is just another guy that wins without, like, I agree with you that it's different because when Eichel and Reinhart and O'Reilly, especially when those guys leave or get traded, they are established great players.
That's right.
They might have ascended more when they left, but they were great players
and
when
in almost every case, they were sort of the player that put that team over the top. It wasn't like they went there and made that team. Florida was there, and boom, they get Sam Reinhart, and they go to 2 straight Stanley Cups, right? And the Knights had already basically been to the Cup Finals. They'd already won one. They'd already won one. They had won one,
but
they'd been to one already. Yeah. And Eichel put them over the top.
And
O'Reilly,
the Blues were a veteran team. They had been to the playoffs.
They had been surging from being the worst team in hockey to being literally the Stanley Cup champion.
And Cousins, the team, right, is different to that. Also, all those guys that were established when they left, Cousins was lost when he was traded.
He is not an established player when he left. Yeah.
So I don't know that trade really does. It could. You're right. Like, it could be a sign that the GM is sticking around through the year. To me, through the offseason, I kind of feel like that's the biggest thing, though, to figure out. And again, like, I'm half kidding about the picture of the owner and the GM sitting as far apart as they were, mostly because I don't really know what else to look at to try and figure it out. You just kind of have to wait, I guess, until, a month from now. A month from now, the season will be over, and usually when GMs get fired, it happens like the week after. So we'll probably know in a month.
And maybe you follow the same Don Granato situation where it felt like maybe they weren't going to fire him right away, and then they got fired.
Yep. 803-0550 is the phone number. There's an awesome Sabres drought bracket also that's going around on Sabres social media that I want to mention. And then for the Bills draft, thing I want to get to today